So Game of Thrones is ripping, and you're just filming reaction videos, doing that kind of thing. But like you're all working different jobs. So this is just like a fun hobby.
Yeah.
And when did you decide like, hey, I think this is the thing that I want to do? How many viewers? How many subscribers? What was like the momentum of the channel that got you the courage to, one, tell your parents that you weren't going to finish college, and two, start a YouTube channel full time in the middle of Indiana?
I did end up getting off academic probation. I went back to college with the focus in video production. So I ended up doing 4 years of a bachelor's degree in what they call informatics there, because there's no film school at IUPUI. It's just called IU now. I ended up finishing up 4 years there, gaining some knowledge in these types of cameras here, like these DSLRs. Like I was using a freaking camcorder back in the day. So it did help me gain some knowledge and get some contacts. 2 years out of college, I'm working at a marketing firm, and I'm the head video guy in their marketing department. So I'm doing these, what we call A/B-roll edits for companies, where they're explaining what we do. It's like, oh, we're the insurance company. We sell your insurance.
And like cut to video of a nice handshake.
They're doing insurance.
Yes.
Look at them doing all the insurance. And yeah, it's stuff like that. And it was very simple work for me. Then on the side, I'm editing Normies content. And so it wasn't until about a year after just uploading reactions to Game of Thrones, some other things, Walking Dead at the time. It wasn't until a year or so of that I decided that I saw the path of like, if I want to see this grow further, I have to leave my job. And I wasn't being paid anything by Normies at that point. I saved up some money because I was filming weddings at the time too. I've just always been grinding with videos. And so I had enough saved up that I feel like I could coast maybe 6 or so months just going all in on the channel. It was at that time where it did actually kind of explode into something that allowed us to leave all of our jobs one by one at a time. It started with me. We created a Patreon, which is basically...
What year is this?
This is 2016.
2016, you were on Patreon?
October 2016, like a little over a year after.
How many, before you left your job, how many subscribers did your channel have?
Less than 20,000.
Okay, but that's fairly good.
It is. It's like a start to show like, well, if that's what I can do while working a 40-hour-a-week job, like what can I do when all my resources are pulled into
like
this
in
now?
Startup terms, it's, you have traction.
Yeah.
You have traction, product market fit, people are liking the content, but you're not like you're getting paid $0.
Exactly. We're $0. We weren't in the adolescent phase yet of you want to call it the development.
And what was like the milestone? You're like, I'm gonna quit my job, I have 6 months and I have to get to X. What's the milestone you're looking for?
The Patreon had started at that point. You go by membership and you go by how much money you're bringing in per month on Patreon. And at the start, it was like, we're bringing in $400 a month. And once it got to like 400, I was like, not much, but like that's enough for me to be like, if I can get that number to triple at least with all my time going into this, like that would be satisfying enough for me.
And for those that might not know what we're talking about, like, can you give like a definition of, or like an overview of Patreon and YouTube and how they all interact and work together?
For sure. So YouTube's where you go to watch all your videos and whatever content you like. Patreon is a separate website where we host our YouTube videos on there as well, but people can pay us monthly. Their choice, depending on the tiers we have. We have like a $5, $10, $25, $100 tiers. Our most popular tier is the $10 tier. This is where the bread and butter comes in. It's like we're watching shows episodic, and so we're posting once a week for each show. The Patreon allows our paid members to watch early access, so like multiple weeks ahead of time. If they want to not wait a month for this episode of this anime that they're really liking to come out, like, oh, I'll just pay $10 and, get this membership going. And then
like watch it the next day or whatever.
Watch it now or the next day. And then they just kind of keep on there because there's a bunch of other offerings we have. We do like live Q&A sessions. We have an exclusive podcast on there. So the idea is to like bring them there to pay monthly and then keep them there.
And what was the original launch on Patreon? Like, what did you offer? Like, did you always have the 5, 10, 15?
It was etchings of that. We had the 5, 10, but we only had we were only offering 1 week of early access because it was at that point just me with a MacBook, like editing everything we were doing just on this tiny computer. And so, yeah, everyone had their own job. So we would just film on Sundays. Just cram everything in like a 12-hour day, like watch and film as much as we can. We would do skits and sketches also, like SNL style stuff. It just finally grew. I believe it was a show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know if
Oh,
you're familiar
yes.
with it.
Aang. Come
Yes,
on.
of course. That show, we had never watched it as kids, and that show was getting a resurgence. And how we partly of how we choose what we watch is we poll our paid members, like, what do you want us to see? They were all clamoring for Avatar: The Last Airbender. We're like, what is this show? Like, this is Nickelodeon. Like, we're not, it's
We're
kids,
adults.
it's a
We're
kids show.
grown.
Yeah, and so a lot of us we watched it for the first time, and that ended up being the thing that was just propelled our Patreon. I doubled, tripled, like that number went like 8 times the original within a couple of months.
So you go from $400 to
that.
$3,200 a month or whatever
Yeah.
in a couple months of reviewing or like watching Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Essentially.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you start to get like, what are your parents saying at this time? Like, you just quit your job, and they're like, Surge, what are you doing?
Oh man, they have no idea what I'm doing. I try to explain it to them, but they're just like, be very careful. Like, are you still filming your weddings? Are you still doing that? Like, the other stuff? I'm like, yeah. It was slowing down. I wasn't really. There's a couple times I had to borrow some money from my dad, which shamefully was like, times are tough back then, but it was just enough to get me over the edge to be able to do this.
Was
So,
that a
like,
hard conversation to have?
that is a very hard conversation to have. 'Cause,
What,
like,
what did
I'm
your parents
always-
want you to be?
They wanted me to just be self-sustaining, like whatever I was doing, whether that was being a pharmacist or a doctor, lawyer. They viewed all the video stuff as a hobby. It's like, Suraj, go to school, get yourself some like security, and then on the weekends after work, if you want to do this video stuff, you can do that. And it just didn't sit right with me that I would have to be doing something that I literally just hated to do, or just felt like was not my passion,
And I think a lot of times this gets watered down of like, go chase your passion. And it's like a lot of people like want to chase their passion, but they don't want to like hustle. And you have to have a balance of both, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got to be willing to do the 12-hour Sundays to like get to a point where you're like, you know what, I can do this. And like, just because you're chasing your passion doesn't mean you get to work 40 hours a week on your passion. You got to work 80 hours a week on your passion
Exactly.
if you really want to make something that's like a non-traditional pathway work.
Exactly.
So was Patreon like, you're like, this is the way? Like, we're just going to invest in
sure.
top of funnel is the YouTube, and then we'll funnel them to Patreon, and you're at $3,200, which is a good living, but you can't employ how many creators, how many friends were in your group?
Even at the start, we had like 8 or 9 people that were just coming, just donating their time just to help see this thing through fruition. Like,
Okay.
very thankful for all of them.
Yeah,
by the way.
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, and now it seems to have paid off, right? So
For
you're
sure.
at 8 or 9 people are helping on the channel. You're working on it full time. And what was like the next milestone that you hit?
We opened up a P.O. box. People could send us stuff because we were seeing, this is what YouTubers do. They have a P.O. box. People send them like gifts and fan mail. And so we decided to do that. I think the first unboxing we had, like someone sent us like an authentic replica of a sword from Game of Thrones, like Jon Snow's sword. And we were just because we looked it up, it's like $1,600 online. And we were just so in awe and shock that someone would care to send us something that valuable.
Yeah.
It instilled a different kind of motivation in us. We were like, we made someone's day so much that they decided to like give us this present, I think that sword, like hung it up on the wall, like use it as motivation, like, look at this, like, let's just keep marching forward.